Yeah, I think the key stat here to mention is 53% of the workforce is expected to retire by 2036, which is a crazy number when you think about it.
Yep. And that number is going up, not down, folks. That number used to be 42% and is now 53%, right? The date has moved out a little bit, but the problem is actually kind of getting worse. Right. The number one thing that the industry is concerned about over the next 2 years, right, is the labor. And where is it going to come from? How are we going to retain it? How are we going to get enough people to come in to do the work that we need to do? When we think about the industry as a whole, right, $22 trillion is where the industry is going to be. I believe it's 2040. And that's up from $13 trillion today.
Yeah,
that's
nearly
almost
double.
doubling. Nearly double, which means we have a lot to build. There's a lot of construction that is going to happen. And we don't have the workforce coming into the industry that we need. The number one reason that people leave is the long hours and unpredictable schedules and like the burnout that goes along with that. That's why people leave. 35% of people. It's not about how much they make or the limited career opportunities. It's about how hard it is to work in this industry.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Bricks and Bytes podcast, where we dive into construction and AEC technology. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology, and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode. Are you interested in finding out how companies scale past the $10 million ARR ceiling? This episode is one of the number of episodes forming part of our new go-to-market guide, which reveals how industry leaders scaled past the stubborn $10 million ARR mark using strategies specifically designed for AEC. Discover the proven land and expand blueprint, pricing models at work, and real case studies from companies with significant exits. To get your copy, visit www.bricks-bytes.com/GTM.
Alrighty, Kris, thanks for coming back. I think the last time we had you was maybe 2023 now.
Yeah, I mean, you guys were not as big of a deal as you are now, so exciting to see all the growth of what y'all are doing. And yeah, I've been following along from afar. Glad to be back on the podcast. Exciting times happening in the world around us, just around construction technology and just all the things happening in the industry. So yeah, thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I think we probably aged a little bit since then. I was standing by the mirror in the bathroom the other day and didn't have any wax in my hair and turned to the side and was like, holy shit, there's a few grays forming here. It was actually quite eye-opening.
Well, it's funny how my kids notice more than I do, right? Because I look at myself every day, but they're like, "Daddy, you're getting a little more gray," and I'm like, "Thank you for reminding me. I appreciate your reminder of my mortality."
Man, kids will always remind you. So I heard there's been some fairly significant news at Procore. One, because Tui will be stepping down as CEO. Has that already happened, or is it currently in the process?
No, we're in the search for a new CEO for Procore, and Tui's not going anywhere. He's really going to be focusing on what he loves to do, really spending a lot of time with our customers. If I think you all have met Tui before. He is so passionate about this industry. I can't imagine him going anywhere, but we are looking in the hunt for a new CEO to step in to run the operations and the day-to-day of the company. And I'm just really excited for him because I know how much passion he has and he gets to spend a lot more time doing the things that he loves. So that's an active search that we're doing right now.
Okay, what I might do this work, I'm going to put a deep research on ChatGPT as we do this episode. I'm going to type in there, what does it take to become the CEO of Procore, and then let's revisit it at the end, and
all right,
we can see whether this matches the job description and whether any of us three here have the caliber to become
the credentials.
Yeah, but before that, we're going to dive into. So Procore, you released this report, the future state of construction. Is it dated 2024 2025? Because I noticed the data come from 2024 primarily, but I guess it's just
it's 2025 is the release date. The data inside of the report actually comes from 2024. We started the research then, and candidly, it's a collection of research that we've been doing over the last 9 to 12 months. So combination of some survey results, some data that we already had, and then candidly, like thousands of customer conversations. Myself and Julian Clayton and several other people from the Procore team, we've really been trying to think about what do we think the future of the industry is going to look like. And, you know, as we were chatting a little bit on the pre-call, just so much is changing so quickly in our industry that even over the course of our research, we've learned a lot because of how fast things are moving. So it's actually a really important report, in my opinion, because we as an industry spend so much time thinking about the right here and right now. What are our problems today? What's happening in our projects? What's happening across our business? But, you know, our leaders in our industry don't spend as much time thinking about what's going to 5 years, 8 years, 10 years out there going to look like. And we really wanted to seed that conversation. And that's where some of those customer conversations came from. We actually ran workshops with hundreds of construction leaders in the room and started to talk about where we felt the industry was headed. And that was really like, hey, we need to put something out to the industry on this so that we can really help them formulate their opinions.
Mm-hmm. Is there any favorite subject in the report that you favor out of all of this?
You know, it's funny. I would tell you that when I came into this idea and was working with the team on putting this report together, I was like, oh yeah, you know, there's so much happening in AI, right? And you'll notice there's not like a future of AI in construction in here. And really it's because it's across all four of what we call the transformation areas, right? The future of productivity, the future of the workforce, the future of decision-making, and the future of design. I think my two favorites are what we're going to see in productivity. And we've been talking about productivity in construction for a very long time, right? But I think there's some things that are really going to shake things up and we're going to see some big steps forward. And then I really think the other one is the workforce. And the reason I get so excited about the workforce, having spent 20 years in the industry, 15 years working on job sites, I really think there's this huge opportunity for us to extend the careers of people that are in the industry and really bring a whole new generation into the construction industry by focusing on how do we transfer knowledge between them, and then how do we make this an amazing industry to work in. And so those are my two favorites that I love to talk about. But the other things are also fun too, because future of design is a little controversial.
Yeah, we like this one.
And I think everybody talks about the future of decision making, right? We all know that data is going to be important. So I feel like that one's gotten a lot of airtime, but I like to talk about them all.
Yeah. Okay. So just for people listening, it's probably, well, I guess you would enjoy the episode more if you also watched, because we're going to share the screen as we go through the report here. And so just to recap Chris's point, there's 4 main top points of subject areas within the report: the future of productivity, 1, the future of the workforce, 2, the future of decision making, 3, and the future of design, 4. So let's go to the future of productivity to start with. So this is all about automating job sites and enabling things like robotics seems to be a key theme that keeps coming up within this. And I think, yeah, we certainly see it. There's a lot more companies appearing now that seem to be tackling this within construction specifically, in varying areas. Some doing actual work of what the trades do, some doing more, let's say, like supplementary, like, or complementary work, like scanning sites, for example, rather than actual the work. So yeah, I think the key points here, Kris, and you can add to these. I've got a little cheat here because the key points are all highlighted in orange, so I'm going to just read those parts out. So it talks about automating tasks that are dull or dangerous, and not eliminating workers, empowering and augmenting the workers that exist within construction site. Key point, because everyone gets a little bit defensive when you start saying, "Damn, no robot's going to take my job." I was like, "Okay, dude, we're not saying that." And then just about how workers wanting to develop their technical skills. So any insight from you guys on that?
Yeah, I think so. The number one key point is, right, we are going to see automation and augmentation. The reason we say it that way is there's a combination of robotics, which is for the physical world, And then I think, AI and agents and automation behind the scenes, that is for the back office and for a lot of the work that we do and, what we call the trailer, right, on the job site. And what we need everybody to understand is that these technologies are not replacing folks, right? And I oftentimes talk about this analogy as, the nail gun did not replace carpenters when it arrived on the job site, right? It replaced the hammer, right? But it didn't replace the need for the carpenter. And so when I'm talk about robotics in our industry, I think a lot of the things that we're going to see a lot of evolution, especially in the next 5 to 8 years, are going to be robots as tools. These are going to be things that are work alongside of humans, right? That are controlled by humans, that are built to do specific tasks. Things like layout, data collection, even like installation of, edge packets on a high rise, right? And things like that these are the tasks that are either like dull, dirty, dangerous. They're just time consuming. And I think we're going to see that adoption really ramp up because it does make people more productive, right? And then on the back of house side is, we still spend a ton of time looking information. You've actually got it on the screen right now. 18% of our time, so almost 1 day a week, people spend just searching for the information they need, right? We were having a little chat about Notebook LM and things like that earlier, right? That seems astronomical in today's day and age on how we find the information we need in order to make decisions. And so we think we're going to automate a lot of that searching, a lot of those like just repetitive tasks that don't really add a ton of value, but you need to do them. One of my favorite examples of this is things like daily reports, right? Why do we need to fill them out? We already know what's happening on the job site. We've got photos of it. We've got phone calls. We've got emails. We've got all these things, right? But somebody has to go and kind of collect that daily log of what's happening. And I think that's like something that we will see really start to evolve as we say, here's the recommended daily log of what happened on the job site. Oh, and by the way, we noticed that you had a planned delivery on your schedule today, but we didn't see any trucks show up. Did it happen? Right? And like almost prompting you to fill out the daily log in a better way. And we all know daily logs are a singular company or a singular person's view of a job site. And so there is some crafting, and that's where the human side comes in, is you're not just going to take exactly what you were given and pass it along. You're going to need to evolve it, as you move forward. And the other one I would just definitely like lean in on here is I do think this is going to lead to less rework and a much safer job site, right? It's just when you can control things and you can automate things, human error is a thing. And so when we can eliminate that on the installation side, when we can eliminate that on the planning side, we are able to then really eliminate the errors that could potentially happen out in the field, which means we don't have to do as much rework. And we know when we don't do as much rework, that we have less safety incidents. And so those are like the things that I get really excited about in the productivity portion is augmenting workers to make them more productive and making just things safer and eliminating the errors that could possibly show up.
Kris, I'm curious, how do you guys as Procore react to these numbers? Because they are really staggering. 18% of the project time is spent searching for data. Like once you discovered it, or figure out that that's the number, like how do you react to it as a company? Are you figuring out some tools for it, or how are you looking at it?
Yeah, so this was a number that was pretty staggering when we saw it come back in our report. I believe it was back in 2023, and so we were like, we got to go solve this problem. Procore's been investing in AI for quite a long time. I think we acquired a company back in 2018, I think it was, and the reality of it is this was like one of the first things we wanted to tackle with this. Like, how do we make it so that people can find the information they need a little bit easier? And that's where we put a lot of AI into our search experience at Procore so that you can just ask natural language questions, right? We don't, when you want to get some information on a job site, what do? You walk into the site trailer, you talk to the site manager or to the project engineer or, whoever is in there and you go, hey, where is this information? right? And you ask it in a very natural way. We wanted people to be able to ask those type of natural questions inside of Procore as well, and then come back with the best response. And so we're trying to really solve this by making it easier to find the things that are already in your data set. And then the other thing that we're really trying to do is we also understand that Procore will never have all the data that you need across your entire project or your entire company, right? And so we really need this opportunity to integrate and to bring data into Procore so that we can find those answers that may come from a different system. It might come from your CRM, it might come from your ERP, it might come from another point solution that you have. But what everybody wants is they want to go one place to ask questions, and we want to be that one place that they go to ask questions and then leverage the data from wherever it was collected. And that's why we've had such an open ecosystem approach to data in, data out, is because we want to make sure that our customers can leverage that information to get the answers that they need.
I just want to say something quickly. Kris, you say that you may not have all the information, but I am 100% certain that there will be some form of agent that says, like, do you want me to check? Like, it will integrate with Procore, right? So if it is in your CRM, then it will just say, okay, we'll send us. It's not part of Procore. We have an agent that will be able to scan your CRM to get you that information. So whilst it wouldn't be housed within Procore, it will still be accessible and available.
Well, and you're jumping to the end of the conversation, right? And this is like with the stuff that's moving super fast, right? Mm-hmm. We have to think about how agents are transversing different systems, right? And that's why everybody in the tech world right now is talking about the protocols that are necessary for agents to look across and interact with different systems. It's no longer necessarily always about, managing human permissions. It's going to be about leveraging and managing agent permissions. And so I agree with you. I think that in the future, we're going to have agents that are going to reach across into different systems and pull data back, and vice versa, right? We're already doing some of this work, and you're seeing some of these things start to show up in the way that we're collaborating with partners like Document Crunch in the US, right? And how their agents are available inside of the Procore interface that are interacting with our contracts, right? So that you can get the answers on, hey, what's in my contract? What do I need to do in order to stay compliant? And I think we're going to see more and more of it. It's just a very fast evolving space right now.
On this second number, 20% of project time is spent on rework or rectifying issues. Like, what are the main issues that this number is such a big number? Is it the issues with the design or supply chains? What are your thoughts here?
Yeah. It's interesting. It's a combination of things, right? We have obviously the design type issues, right? Those are things that make their way out to the field that just don't work, right? We have untimely information. So people didn't have the most updated information. They didn't have the right information, and they installed something inappropriately or improperly, right? And then we also have the human error aspect, right? Is that, all the information was there, the design was right, but somebody just made an error, right? Those are really the three buckets that lead to the rework that happens out in the field. And I think, we spend a lot of our time just trying to track and fix those things, right? And so in a world where we're already struggling for labor, right? So one of the number one concerns, you'll see a little bit later in the report, we can touch on that, still the top concern for folks. We have to think about how we don't have them spend time on things that aren't adding value to the project, and have them spending times that are actually adding value and getting the project done, right? And so if we can even reduce that 28% down to, let's say 15, cut it in half, right? That's a lot of time given back to the project that we don't have to just manage like change orders and budgets and what is the fix for this? How do I fix it, right? Because then you got to go ask an RFI and get a solution. If we can just avoid the error altogether, then we can, spend our time on, hey, maybe there's more budget to be spent on something that will enhance the project at the end. Or maybe there is just one less person that's necessary on that project because, hey, we're not chasing down all of these changes that have to happen.
So is the answer like an army of agents that will be on every step with you and kind of helping you make every single step during the construction process, design, coordination?
Well, now you're jumping a little bit ahead to what we'll call the future design. You start to see how all these things start to meld together, right? I think that's part of the solution, but I also think the data and who is involved in the design is going to really matter a lot more, right? Respondents have told us that they believe that BIM is going to continue to be more and more important. But what we believe is not that just BIM is going to be more important, because candidly, I think the way we do BIM is a little bit broken today. Right? We have, architects and engineers that create these models, and then as contractors, we go and like redraw them and we recreate them because we have to think about things like cost, constructability, right? And actually systems design. And when you think about the data that our construction companies, our contractors have about how things get built and what's most effective, I think you actually can start to think about, well, why should they not own more of the design process? And I think the tools we're seeing around, especially around like systems design, so think of MEP, structural, the things that happen inside the envelope, there's a lot of room there for automation. Like those processes they can never quite keep up to the changing design of what the flow of the building, what the exterior of the building looks like. And so how do we then more integrate that process into the contractor's world and let them use the data and the knowledge that they have in order to feed that automation and actually start to automate a lot of the, the systems engineering, because those things are math. That's what computers is really, really good at. And so we can start to pull the thread at like, well, if a human's not involved, how much more error can there be? And how much more quickly can we get design iterations? Because the architect did decide to change some room layout. So now we need a new MEP design, and we're not at risk of that not being ready by the time the trade actually gets to install it.
Very nice. We'll stick on product. I'm just thinking of time, so I may just skip to the main summary of these bits here, and then we'll move on to the next section. But to summarize the future of productivity in Procore's terms will be technology not replacing workers, but augmenting them. Job sites becoming safer because machines can perform dull or dangerous tasks, and data-driven pre-construction, AI and automation will help reduce rework and loss of productivity. I think we pretty much covered that, right? I did have.
It's almost like I knew what the answers were at the back of the book.
We should have just gone through each summary page, right?
I was going to say we might just want to start there and work our way back.
Yeah, maybe we should do that. Okay, let's try that for the next section. I'm curious about some of the. Yeah, I guess there are some case studies from companies as well within here, which are always interesting to read, to actually see it, because it's good to talk about it, but actually seeing it is what people are like, okay, this works. So check those out.
And Owen, I think if I can highlight one really in there, the Winvic case study is a big fan of. I actually got to physically go to that job site.
Yeah.
And this was a turning point for me when I saw how this stuff was working out in the field. And there's two parts to it. The first was they were using robotic layout, and I've seen, robotic total stations. I've seen some robot layout before, but to actually see the amount of work that they were putting in place, and also how they were using new hires. So they were really leaning into their apprentices to learn these. And the apprentices some of these apprentices had other jobs on other job sites, and they would come out like once a week just to learn these technologies. And that was really, really interesting to me. And so to see it happening and to see how effective it was and how passionate that they were about, hey, this is actually making a big difference on our job site. And then the remote operated crane just made so much sense to me in my head. It was like, okay, this person doesn't have to climb up and down all day. And the thing that really opened my eyes was it's not just about that. It's also about they can be more efficient in operating that crane, because there's no more limitation of what they're looking at in the cab, right? They now have all these monitors, and they can put cameras anywhere that they want. And the reason that they used it on this job site was because they had a lot of blind picks. And so you see all those screens in front of the operator, and they now have views that they would have never had before, that are overlaid with like swing radiuses and augmented reality. Awesome. And that really was interesting. So to see a job site that was leaning into this and really starting to put these tools to work, and in all candor, they were pilots for them, But I've checked back with them and they're like, no, flying colors they are passing with, and we will definitely do these things again. That was really great to see it in reality out in the field.
Yeah, it looks awesome. And I'm guessing like you then, they probably do already have it, but if you add computer vision or some other software to this, you then can start picking up like dangers with any lifts or potential risks in real time, right? So like you say, it's not just about what the operator can see in the cab. It's now you've got like an infinite amount of eyeballs like watching every single lift, which massively reduces risk. And risk is always one of those things whereby you're trying to sell a solution to an exec in a company and you're like, we're reducing your risk. It's going to be a good sell.
Always. It's one of the number one things that most of the executives that we talk about, which is they really want to better manage risk and loss. Mm-hmm. That's what construction is. It's a business of managing risk. Yep. And so anyone who can really double down and focus on landing that plane for them, I think is going to have a good time, interacting with executives and leaders, because that's something that is deeply passionate for them.
Awesome.
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks and Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
Okay, so the next section is future of workforce. Let's go to the summary and then we'll go into the detail. Okay, key takeaways. Culture has a direct impact on attracting and retaining talent. 1. 2. Two-way knowledge transfer will reduce the impact of retirements while increasing career longevity. 3. Upskilling and training across all levels is necessary to engage employees and realize the value of technology investments. So my guess is that this is all about bringing in the next generation, labor shortages, how we can take the people that are retiring's brains and somehow implant them into the people that are coming through, and also what skills people need in order to engage employees. So
I think the killer stat here to mention is 53% of the workforce is expected to retire by 2036, which is a crazy number when you think about it. 53% of the workforce is expected to retire in 11 years.
Yep. And that number is going up, not down, folks. That number used to be 42% and is now 53%, right? The date has moved out a little bit, but the problem is actually kind of getting worse, right? And as the stats show, 35%. So it's the number one thing that the industry is concerned about over the next 2 years, right? Is labor. And where is it going to come from? How are we going to retain it? How are we going to get enough people to come in to do the work that we need to do? When we think about the industry as a whole, right, $22 trillion is where the industry is going to be. I believe it's 2040. And that's up from $13 trillion today.
Yeah,
that's
nearly
almost
double.
doubling.
Yeah.
Nearly double, which means we have a lot to build. There's a lot of construction that is going to happen. And we don't have the workforce coming into the industry that we need right now. The productivity challenge is one way to address it. But the other way to address it is to really start to think about how do we extend our workforce, keep the people who are going to retire a little bit longer and let them play a different role in the industry. And then how do we get new hires, new people into the industry and keep them around and make them more effective, right? And so when we talk about this knowledge transfer, we're talking about, a site supervisor, a superintendent, a project manager who has 30 to 40 years of experience up in their brain. How do we take that and actually bring that to the next generation? How do we transfer that knowledge? And I think technology plays a big role here, because I think we now have the ways to collect a lot of this information that we didn't have before, right? And I've even seen customers of ours, this is an awesome play, is bringing people out of retirement and just literally interviewing them and collecting what they've learned and all the decisions that they've made.
Nice.
And that's like the type of approach that we need to have. I also think that, technology is a thing that the industry, like people want to come into the industry. The number one reason that people leave is the long hours and unpredictable schedules and like the burnout that goes along with that. That's why people leave. 35% of people. It's not about how much they make or the limited career opportunities. It's about how hard it is to work in this industry. So when we talk about what technology can address in a lot of cases, it's those things. It makes you more productive. It allows you to get your job done in 8 hours instead of 12. I was one of those guys. I would show up at the job site at 6 a.m. and if I got out of there by 6 p.m., I was feeling really good. If I got out of there by 8, I was like, it's what I kind of expected. And so you can see like the generation coming in, that's not what they're looking for, right? It's not that they're looking for a 9 to 5, but they want to know that the industry is investing in changing and getting better. And that's where you can see the combination of 51% of them want to see work-life balance evolve over the next 2 to 3 years. And they want to see us invest in using technology in order to make efficiency and safety better, right? 4%. And that's what will change the culture of our industry, is by investing in those things appropriately. And that's what leaders believe. Leaders are being confronted with a generational challenge right now. I think it's 96% have reported that they are facing generational challenges right now. And how do we transfer this knowledge? And so they're looking for ways to solve that. And the number one reason that they think that, they can do that is technology and technical skills.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Attracting new young people, you can do it probably by adding interesting, cool, and helpful technology to the equation, and then you can have hopes that you can keep them for long enough to not to have these shortages within the industry. Yeah, I think we have to start from the young people, really.
And all of these points here are like truly generational things, actually, like what the next generation really does want, like work-life balance, using technology, sustainability. Next one, not so, but collaboration, safety and well-being. It's all stuff that people from the next wave of people come through really do crave when they're considering employment opportunities.
Well, think about it this way. Let me just paint a little picture for you. If you're new to the construction industry and you show up tomorrow, right? Just graduated high school or just graduated college, I'm going to go work for a construction company. And this is applicable to any industry, but it really is hyper focused in the construction industry. When you show up day one, you want to know, like, what am I supposed to be doing so I can actually do the job, right? And right now, we just have a really hard time on like training those people on what the job is and also making it so that they can get their job done effectively, right? And when we think about why that's so hard, is so much of our industry is tied to, the people who have done it before make the decisions. And so they all want to contribute, but they don't know how to make the decisions yet. And the only way that they can learn is years of experience. We need to change that paradigm. And so what I get excited about, and I'm not wearing them right now, but I do have a pair of Meta glasses that I wear a lot, and I'm actually pretty impressed by them.
Mine loves them.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. But I think about what I can do with those glasses today, and I see where it could head in the industry. And it's like, okay, if I'm a new technician and I am installing an air handler unit, I may have never seen this unit before. And so I'm going to struggle with it, and that's going to frustrate me. But imagine that I can just call someone who has been in the industry for 35 years and sits, maybe somewhere up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan is in ice fishing for all I know. But they've done 100 of these things, right? And they look at it and they go, okay, you need to reach inside the unit, and on the left-hand side, there's a couple of wires. Pull those wires out, and you need to make sure that the red, and they just kind of can walk you through it because they've seen it 100 times. Now you solve that problem in 15 minutes instead of a few hours. And you're like, oh man, that was so much better. And you're like, I can move on to the next task, right? So it's an efficiency thing, but it's also like a satisfaction thing. And then we've also taken that knowledge, and instead of it just like going to ice fish and leaving the industry, we can still tap into it. And I think the things like, wearables, I think things like real-time connectivity, right? We have satellites in our phones now. How far are we away from like all just job sites are all connected at all times? These are things that I think are going to unlock the way that this knowledge transfer happens between folks that doesn't require them to be face-to-face or physically in the same place at the same time.
Great. What do you guys think? When we were going through this, I noticed that 71% of the respondents were motivated by financial growth. Was that surprising to you guys?
No, I mean, listen, we all do a job that we love, but we also want to make money, right? Like, and we want to see, and I think the financial growth is not just about like how much we earn, but it's about like the long-term opportunity. The construction industry is one of the most entrepreneurial industries in the world. Think about all of the small contractors that are spin-outs. Somebody works for a company for 10 years and then goes and starts their own company. And so when I think about this, and we've talked about this internally, what this actually means, I think a lot of them see the opportunity for them to earn over a long period of time. It's also the reason that we've seen at least companies here in the United States, and I'm not sure if it's the same over in Europe or in Australia, but companies that have employee-owned companies where somebody has a piece of the pie, right? That's very motivating to them, right? And that helps with worker retention. So if I know at the end of the year, if the company is profitable, that's actually going to hit my bottom line, not just, some owner of the company and their family, right? That's pretty motivating. And so we've seen some trends that have really shown that, hey, people are motivated, and it's not about just like their salary on a day-to-day, it's their kind of total earning potential that they have in the industry. And so this wasn't surprising, but we had to dive into it a little bit more to better understand what was the area of focus for them.
I think, Owen, you were asking this question thinking that it is not so likely that financial growth is a part of what motivates people, because there's lots of people coming out of the industry just because there is a feeling that there is not enough of this financial growth.
Potentially, but I also think that like thinking of the next generation, I think that their motivation is more along the lines of personal fulfillment and doing something meaningful versus financial gain. So it just surprised me, this statistic.
And I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, Owen, like we'd have to slice the data a little bit differently to see like if we were to break that down by generation, because we have the data to know what level and where people are in these organizations, to see if it leans a little bit more in there. My guess is, based on how high personal fulfillment is on this list, that there is probably a lot of a newer generation in our industry that is the more important to them. I think there are a lot of people in this industry who are like, hey, I am here because I see the opportunity for financial growth and wealth building for me. And those things don't have to be mutually exclusive. They can be very, very tied together.
Nice.
Kris, what were the learnings for Procore in terms of this chapter, future of the workforce? How did you change or adapt, like where you were thinking about technology and your platform?
Yeah, I think a few things that really stood out to us is one is it reaffirmed what we have always believed, that culture is a driver for business in the construction industry. We've been running what we call Culture Academy here at Procore for several years, where we bring executives from construction companies and teach them how to build a best-in-class culture. And so it was like an affirmation that the industry also believes that, and that we need to spend more time and energy focusing on that growth. It's not, technology alone won't solve the problem, right? And it's why we asked a lot of the questions that we did. I think the other learning for us is, and I think we kind of knew this, but this helped validate the hypothesis that knowledge transfer in our industry is something that we have not spent enough time doing over the last 10 years, right? And so we need more focus on how do we collect those decisions and what those learnings on are, lessons learned, and how do we transfer them to the next generation. And then I think the third learning that, and so we're investing in how do we, if you think about every time you do an RFI, every time you do a submittal, every time you put a change order in Procore and you click a button, you're making a conscious decision. And so we're trying to record all of those decisions so that we can help transfer that knowledge to the next person. It's like, on projects like yours, we've seen this situation before. Here's what they have done. Would you like to do the same thing? Kind of scenario. And then I think the last piece is, how do we really start to think about the way that we address the next generation coming in, right? And how do we make sure that we retain them? I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have, is people are coming in, but they're leaving very, very quickly. And a lot of them are very interested in coming in, and they want to see the investments in the business and the technology and in the tools they get to use their job. And so some of the data that we have around that really does lead to like upskilling and training across all levels, but also new roles. There are new roles that will exist in this industry, and we're trying to figure out what those are and how do we help facilitate those for the industry. I think one that pops up for me is like, 5 years ago, if you ask construction companies how many of them had a data scientist on hand, the answer would be like 1%. Now that's becoming more and more common, and they're even coming from other industries to come into construction. And so like, how do we start to make sure that we have the right skills to do the job in the industry, and then invest in those people who are in the industry if they want to learn that skill?
Brilliant. Okay.
I guess having a really nice office in Carpentaria makes it a little bit easier for people wanting to join Procore if you're based in the office.
Yeah, that's true. Walking along the bluffs between meetings is not a horrible thing to do.
Yeah, still waiting for an invite.
The invitation's always open, Owen. Always open.
Quick break to let you know, if you're getting value from this conversation, we've compiled insights like these into our comprehensive construction tech go-to-market guide. Inside, you'll find the exact frameworks top AEC tech companies use to break past the $10 million ARR mark, detailed case studies from successful exits, and actionable playbooks for pricing, sales team structure, and enterprise expansion. Head to www.bricks-bytes.com/GTM and transform how you approach growth in construction tech. Now back to our conversation.
Okay, cool. Shall we go on to chapter 3? I like how we done it before, where we done the summary first, and then we dived into the details. So the future of decision making is data driven. So key takeaways for this section: tech and people will be partners in complex decision making. Integrated data models will provide new and critical information on job sites. AI models, automation, and predictive analytics will synthesize historical and real-time data, unlocking actionable insights and recommendations. Beautiful. So
I love all of this. I just want to know the date, the time when it's all coming.
Yeah, I think we all do, right? I think construction's been on a journey as it relates to data, and I think part of our digital transformation has been the digitization of our industry, and that is just collecting data in a more digital way. And I think we've been doing that now for 5, 7, maybe even 10 years as an industry. And so we have a lot to learn on how do we, actually then go and action the data, right? But the respondents tell us that 80% of them agree that they need to have access to that historical data. It's critical for future projects. They need to have data across their team and across systems in order to make decisions for those projects. So back to your comment earlier, Owen, about agents that are going to crawl other systems, right? They're foreshadowing that. And that having historical data, and especially historical data around financials, helps them reduce their risk. And the reason for this is, as an industry, we have just spent our entirety making decisions based on our gut. That's how we did it, right? It was like, oh, I've seen this situation before. This is how I'm going to do it. We haven't made decisions with data and insights. And this is where I think we are really going to say, no, things aren't going to be fully automated for us, but we're going to be in this world where we have a more hybrid decision-making model, right? We have historical data. We're going to have a lot more real-time data. So we talked about like IoT and like wearables. Think about all the data streams that could be fed into our decision-making criteria. And then we're going to use things like AI and agents to do insights, to do automation, to provide us some predictive analytics, so that then as a human, we could be presented with more information and not have to spend as much time pulling it together, so that we can make a decision with that data in front of us that's more informed, right? And I think that's the change that needs to happen, is we need to become just more data aware and more data driven. And now we're starting to get to a point where we actually have the data in order to do that.
I think this is a great point, and actually a bit of a hot topic, whereby a lot of people we speak to, there's this major issue around the trust and output of that comes from AI. Because we went through this phase, right, where it was like AI came and you were getting this amazing output, and you're like, wow, this is so great. And now like this output comes and people are like, ooh, I'm not so sure about that. And also because of the liabilities, etc., that are involved, that if you make a decision, you send potentially like a binding email of some sort, which is based off some data that was provided to you by an AI system, and it's inaccurate. Who's gonna be in trouble? I'm not sure. The liability ultimately lies with you, right? Your company and the insurance, etc. So, I think, is there any, Kris? Actually, this is a good question. Has Procore seen similar, and are there like initiatives you guys are implementing or thinking about, whereby you are making AI more trustworthy, or at least their awareness around that?
Yeah. So two things. Trust of AI is a huge topic, and it's a big challenge, right? I like to describe it to folks this way. I call AI my artificial intern, right? And if you think about it for a second, right? When you hire an intern on a construction project, do you go ask them to prepare the financial report for your business and then send that to your board without reviewing it first? I certainly hope not, right? You probably give them some task that if they screwed it up would not be the end of the world. And you look for those opportunities to review and coach them to make it better. And so if you treat your AI the same way and you say, hey, I'm going to give you this task, go do this task. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to tell you what's good about it, what's bad about it. And then you're going to come back to a better answer for me. And then, maybe I ask you to do it a couple times and I'm just really happy with the way that you're doing it. So now I have some trust in you that you can do that skill, right? And now I know I can teach you a new skill, right? And so I think it's really important, as people are relying on data and relying on AI and relying on agents, that we put it in the right context of what trust you would give to a human, the same way that you are going to give it. You can't just trust it implicitly from day one, right? You need to validate that. And so what are we doing about that? And I think this is a lot of the work that we're doing, is we are focusing on those specific skills that we know that are really important, that we can build agents, right? That can do those things repeatably, and we validate the responses over and over and over again. And we have the opportunity in the product for people to say, was this a good response? Was this a bad response? Like, was it what you were expecting, right? The other thing is that people have to understand that the more generic an agent, the more generic the AI, the more generic the response you're going to get, right? And so this is one of the reasons that we are focusing on building what we call Agent Studio, which we announced last year at Groundbreak, which is, we understand that you want to build agents that are based on your process, your SOPs, your way of working at your specific company. And so that means that you need to feed it data from Procore that is going to come in from RFIs, submittals, change orders, whatever the objects are that you're trying to train on. But you also need to feed it your standard operating procedure, your way of thinking, right? The same way that you would prompt an AI, in ChatGPT with tone and different things like that to write something for you. You need to prompt it with your procedures as well. And that will allow companies to build agents that are specific to them and their decision-making criteria, their SOPs, so that they can put a higher level of trust in them. Now, that's going to be a more advanced thing that folks want to go do. It's for the power users. But then once it's deployed, then you can say as an organization, hey, we have trained this, we trust it, you can use this. And you can have this expectation. And so I think overall, the thing that we have to think about is the trust comes when we've seen repeated success. And the more times that we ask it and we get answers that we like and that we spend coaching it, the more trust we will have in it, so that we'll keep giving it bigger and bigger things to go and do.
No, well said. I completely agree.
Yeah.
It's interesting actually, because when we speak with startups and also investors, investors especially, and larger companies, general contractors would say they don't want to see or hear about any more tools that are just increasing the speed of search. They want to see tools which not only increase the speed of search, but also will do something with this search. So it's interesting to see how the space will evolve in terms of getting to the stage where we have software or platform solutions which are providing guaranteed outcomes, rather than only providing some speed up service of search, for example.
Yeah, like to get into the tech world a little bit, I mean, think about every platform that's out there, whether it's Salesforce, whether it's your ERP, SAP, whether it's your data warehousing or your data solution, they all have an AI solution now, right? And so the question is like, as a construction business, how many AIs are you going to deploy inside of your business, right? Like that's going to be a question you're going to have. Are we going to buy them in all of them? Or are we going to focus on ones that we know that we can trust and that we can train to do the things that we want, right? And you might have a couple, right? Because some of them might be very specific on specific data sets, right? Like HR is a very different thing than project management and project financials, right? And those are different things that you want to go do. And so I think these are the conversations that, CTOs, CIOs, and people of, that are thinking about this are starting to have, is like, and we've heard this from our customers, is like, why should I buy your thing? Right. And what's going to make your thing different? Right. And it needs to be more comprehensive than, hey, it just helps me find documents faster. It needs to be more about what actions does it help me do? How much can I train it? How trustworthy is it going to be, right? What do the results look like? And, I think that's going to change the landscape on the startups a bit, right? Because they're going to have to think about how they build either really deep and trustworthy around specific processes. Yep. Or they're going to have to think about how they get really broad and be able to bring a lot of content across a lot of different platforms to provide a lot of different answers. And I just think that's also going to be very hard too.
Yeah. I think there's a little bit of a way to go there. I know certainly from personal experience, but also other people that I speak to, we all have now, I don't know, 4 or 5 subscriptions to different AI platforms, right? Because one is slightly better than the other at one, but you don't want to get rid of the other one because it's better in the other one at the other thing. So you're like, what do you end up using?
This sounds just like when we had hundreds of point solutions in the construction tech space a few years ago. I remember that in like 2017, 18, where we were running like 75 apps on our iPads because, that one does drawings better and this one does photos better and this one, right? It becomes a change management and adoption problem. And that becomes, the other thing is that in the AI world, it becomes a data source problem. And where can you get enough of the data connected in order to go do those things that you want to go do? And that's I think the debate that we're going to see press on here over the next year, 2 years as these things evolve is, hey, like how am I going to approach what my AI agent stack looks like on top of my platforms that I've invested in?
Yep. Beautiful. Let's go then to the future of design. And I saw this because I think maybe we mentioned it off air or when we were hit record, I can't remember, but we said this is a little bit of a controversial one. And this is a great discussion because even me looking at the first 10 words or so on this, I don't agree because I think maybe it's trying to say this, but maybe it's not. But it says the designers of tomorrow will be builders themselves. I actually think it should say the builders of tomorrow will be designers themselves.
I agree.
Okay. Oh, I agree with both of that. I think that's actually maybe a better way to phrase it.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to say the same thing, but like,
we're trying to say what you're implying, Owen. Which is fine. That the contractors, the builders, they are going to take over more of the design process in the future because only they have the understanding of what will work from a constructability, from a cost, supply chain. And there's just so many things leading us towards this world where design build and really, contractors owning, especially the systems, right? I still think there's a big need for architects. I think there is a need to come up with space design and conceptual design and, planning of spaces. But I think when we start to get into how buildings work and how they're actually going to get built and how the systems interact with us, I just can't think of anybody that's more qualified to do this than either builders themselves or owners with really in-depth knowledge of what they're building over and over again. You think of some of these data center folks, they've built a lot of buildings and they have learned a lot, and now they have the knowledge to go do that. And so, maybe some owners this makes sense for as well.
I love this. I love this discussion. Okay. All right. Let's go to the quick summary points. And did we get? Okay, here we go. Key takeaways of the future of design. So, as we just mentioned, design of tomorrow will be builders themselves. AI and ML will reduce rework, waste, and frustration. Easy to use tools will allow teams to contribute to the design process regardless of their experience.
I love this one, actually. I know that Procore caters to B2B, right? It's a B2B platform, but actually on the separate point, I actually think that similar thing will happen to B2C for the small projects that maybe are not suitable for any like larger contractors or users of Procore, but seems like a great minds thing.
Yeah, I would also like to just draw some analogy from this. So this morning or yesterday or over the weekend, I was playing around with this tool called Gumloop online, and it allows you to build your own AI agents to take control of like administrative tasks that you might do in your typical workday and various other things. Like it could be content creation, lead generation, email triage, whatever you use it for. But when you're building your workflows within the agent software, it's fairly technical, right? You need to understand like what they call them nodes, but these are like the building blocks of your agent. You need to know which ones to use. So you have to spend probably like, I don't know, a few weeks educating yourself on how to use a platform effectively. You have to like take code from website if you're scraping it and understand like HTML tags and CSS classes, etc., etc. However, within the software, they have their own agent where you just tell it what you want it to do and it tells you how to do it. So it completely democratizes like that technical element. Like you don't need to be technically minded to be able to use this software, because I would have just switched off at one point and been like, oh, this is a little bit technical for me. But by using that and asking questions and it helped me build is amazing. So I see the same thing coming in construction, whereby like Martin was saying, you have a consumer that wants to build their home and they have this co-pilot with on their design tool, and you're just telling it what you want. And it's like saying, no, you can't do that because it doesn't meet the local building regulations. Do this instead. So it tells you what to do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, next step. Would you like me to produce the full buildable construction set drawings? Yes, please. Yeah. And so on.
Yeah. I think that's a really big aspirational dream, and I would love to see that, right? To the point where we get to like, that's what we need. I think the challenge that dream has is the quality of the data to feed to automate a lot of those processes, right? And I think what's more achievable in that like 8, 5, 10-year time frame, somewhere in there, is you will be able to prompt and engineer like design systems, because we have like, think of the BIM models that exist today, right? We have millions of them. Now, the question is do we have millions of them that were actually constructed the way that they were and as built appropriately, right? But we have a lot of data around what worked, what didn't work, and what went from what was in the design to what was actually, sent to the field, right? And builders have that. And to your point, I think that the design tools that exist today won't be the design tools we're using in the next 5 years. I just think, I was a Revit user for many, many, many years, and I still was not that good at it, right? Like, and I think there's a lot of people out there that would say the same thing. I think something is going to come that's going to change the way that happens. And I think that you'll be able to have a superintendent sit down or a foreman sit down and go, I want to rework the ductwork in this hallway to run everything down, the east side. And I want all of my drops to come out of the bottom of the piping instead of coming out of the sides. And like, it'll happen like that, right? And that's the tough stuff that I think will get really exciting, because now the engineering, like I said, it's engineering, it's math. Computers are really, really good at math, better than humans. And so like, these are codes, these are calculations, these are materials, these are fittings that are all known things. And so when we can start to say like, hey, I just want to actually now start to think about how do I make the system more operable? Clash detection will be a solved problem, because it just won't put a duct or where a pipe is. Like, now the decision they'll have to be able to make is like, who has priority, right? And those are things that we manage kind of offline now, but could easily be done in a system. And, you know, I had some conversations with some engineers about this, like MEP, big engineering firms. And I was like, how do you feel about this? Like, am I going to piss a lot of people off when I say these things? And interestingly enough, well, what was interesting is they said, well, not us. And I said, oh, tell me more. That's interesting. And they said, well, we already outsource about 90% of our drafting overseas. And so we don't believe that the value we bring to an owner is the drafting part. And what you're talking about is automating and solving the drafting part.
Yes.
And I thought that was a really interesting perspective. Now, this was a very large engineering firm that's probably been thinking about this for a while. And they said, what we want to optimize for is, what are the customer's needs and how do we deliver the performance of the building at the end of the project to make sure that the life cycle of the design is actually meeting their needs, right? Because these buildings cost millions of dollars to operate over 30 years. And they're like, that's where we want to bring the value. And I was like, that's an interesting perspective. And so I think, you know, we'll start to see these roles evolve, where designers are taking a different location in the value chain, and contractors are taking more of the design or the drafting, you know, portion of this, so that they can move more to fabrication and then install than we've seen before. And it's just a really exciting space. And I think this is one that's going to be a little bit more disruptive, or maybe that folks aren't talking about as much as some of the other future transformation areas.
Kris, I just wanted to pick on something you said, which is on the example of this intern that is changing the piping arrangement and everything just changes straight away. How would this intern prompt it? Via text or via language?
Great
voice?
question. Yeah.
I love
interfaces.
That. Yeah, interfaces are a great conversation. And similarly, I think that bold statement that I've been making a lot lately is that forms and text entry are going to be dead. I don't think, like, if you think about not just in this design process, but you also think about like the data we need to collect from the field. Why are we filling out a form, right? Do we really need somebody to walk through and fill out 25 different fields? We know what the data we need is. We can go grab that information, and they should be able to do it with natural language. I think you're going to see user interfaces evolve in a big way, that you talk to software the same way that you talk to humans. And those will be agents that are carrying things out on your behalf. Those will be agents who are taking that and filling the forms out for you. Those will be agents that'll be prompting you for information that they need to fill out the form, right? We already have examples of this in Procore today, right? Like, if you want to create an RFI, you actually don't have to go and fill out an RFI form today, right? If you're team shop and you're talking about a design problem, or you're talking about something in the drawings, you can ask it to create an RFI for you, and it will fill out, assign who it's supposed to go to based on previous information, and fill about 75% of it out for you. So how much further do we have to go to where it's like, hey, I'm also going to recommend a suggested solution, right? And now all we're keeping the form for is the database. All the data still needs to live in the background, because if we lose that, we lose a lot of, I think, decision-making power in the future. But it won't be us sitting down to go step by step through the forms. It'll be us sitting down to talk to the solution and have it act on our behalf. And I think the same is going to happen in design. And I think you'll be able to sit down and visually and verbally be able to communicate those. Even if it's just voice to text, I still think it'll be very natural language as we move forward.
100% agree.
Beautiful. Any closing statements on the future of construction? report?
I mean, I just I hope people read this and they are inspired. I mean, that's what we're looking for. I think I want people to start having these conversations. And there is a lot of transformation happening in our industry today. And there's a huge opportunity for businesses that are out there. It's clear that if you're trying to attract and retain new talent, you need to be thinking about how you're investing in technology, how you're upskilling your people around it. And there's a lot of technology that didn't exist a year ago that is now coming to fruition. And so you need to be thinking about how your business will evolve alongside these transformations that are happening on the technology side. So my ask to all leaders that are looking at this is take a step back from your business for a hot second. Read this and think about if even one of these things comes true, right? If even one of these is true in 5 years, how does that change your business and what should you be doing today to prepare for that? And these are the conversations that we had at a lot of our roundtables, and they were really interesting, the outcomes that came out of them, that I think these are the conversations we should be having as an industry instead of just trying to solve the same old problems the same old ways.
Beautiful. Okay, thank you, Kris. I just wanted to loop us back to the beginning of the conversation where I said I would share the outcome of the ChatGPT deep research on the what it takes to be the CEO of Procore. And whilst we were doing this discussion, I also managed to prepare my application letter. So shall we go through
it? Well, I appreciate that. I'll have to review it afterwards, and I'll pass it along to the team to see if you'd be a good fit, Owen. We appreciate your submission.
Okay, let's do it. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, so I've addressed it to Tui. I'm not sure if he's hiring, the direct person hiring, but hey, hi Tui. I'm reaching out to express my deep interest in succeeding you as CEO of Procore. You've built something remarkable, not just a platform, but a movement that's reshaped the way the world builds. What started above a surf shop is now a mission-critical operating system for one of the world's largest industries. And yet, the opportunity ahead is even bigger. Procore is uniquely positioned to lead the next decade of construction transformation. I believe I'm the right person to carry that mission forward. I bring I'm glad you guys agree. I bring proven experience scaling high growth SaaS businesses across complex multi-stakeholder environments. Simple. I understand the realities of the built world, the fragmented supply chains, the job site chaos, and the tension between schedule, safety, and profit, and how software can be the glue. I lead with people. I build teams where values come first, culture scales with ambition, and customers feel seen, not sold to. I think like a founder, operate like an owner, and move with urgency because this industry doesn't have time to wait for incremental change. I liked every one of your tweets for the last 3 years. Which is not actually too far from the truth. You've spent 20 plus years laying the groundwork. I want to build on that with respect for what's made Procore great and a relentless drive to scale it globally, sustainably, and impactfully. I'd welcome the opportunity to share more. Warm regards. Oh no, I'll fill that bit in after anyway. Yeah. So what do you think? Should I go for it?
I think that's a pretty inspiring cover letter. Yeah. If everything in there is true, I mean, you seem like a great candidate. So, Owen, I just got to see the backup now, but that's what I would be looking for in a CEO anyways.
Awesome. Yeah, just make sure it doesn't get lost on the stack of paper. Yeah.
Okay, absolutely. It's so funny you bring it up though. These are such great points, and I mentioned things like Culture Academy previously, and how we are trying to bring culture to the industry, which is something that we've been doing for several years. But even this line about, hey, I build teams where values come first, culture scales with ambition, and clearly when the deep research was happening around Procore, it really keyed in on that, right? And I think that is something that we want our customers in the industry to do as well. And so whether it's the new CEO that we're hiring and we want them to embody that, or it's how we can assist the industry in helping to do that, that is one of the most important things I think that can happen at Procore in the industry right now to really tackle the challenges we have and the growth we have moving forward.
Yeah. Awesome. I think the next episode we do at Procore will be my interview with Tui. So watch this space.
That'd be great. It'd be hilarious.
Or his interview with you.
We're gonna have to bring you to Carp though to do it. I mean, only in-person interviews, right, Owen?
That's fine by me. I'll be there as long as I can play golf afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. This has been awesome.